Ashish Prashar. He was an advisor to the Middle East peace envoy and political strategist for the Biden campaign. Ashish, thank you very much for coming into the studio this evening. Let's start with Israel's purported attempt at damage control. What do you make of that?
I mean, it's too late. 2 years of a genocide. We've all watched dead baby after dead baby after dead baby on our TikTok, Instagram, whatever else, even with mainstream Western media suppressing everything and actually propagating Israeli lies all through this, from the BBC to CNN. Yet the public in all those countries have been on their social media platforms and watched this genocide happen in real time and watched the lies of their own media and their politicians. It's too late. They can buy TikTok, they can pay influencers $7,000 per post, they can do all these things, they can buy every TV network. The problem is you only have to look at the streets. You just watched Italy have a general strike where millions have marched. The flotilla got seized, millions across Europe are marching. They've lost the world popular opinion already. You've seen even in America, which is the most propagated market, the market that Benjamin Netanyahu himself cares so much about, right? He personally leads those PR efforts. He goes to meet influencers. He did that podcast tour, if you remember, in his last visit to Washington, where he met with all these right-wing podcast shows. He knows American public opinion is the most important thing to him to continue his genocide in Gaza and his expansion of Israel's project. And he's even lost the American public opinion, which shows how late they are to this game. Now, does that not mean they're going to control more of the narrative? Yes. But the thing is, people already know that's about to happen and have found other platforms, other ways to communicate, and frankly, have gone back to the street to actually mobilize, to actually communicate to each other in real life about what's going on in Gaza. So the effort is really dangerous. It's really scary when you think about what could be going on that we can't see. That's the dangerous part here. Whether it's suppression in the United States or God knows what they're going to do next. They've used every type of weapon in Gaza to exterminate people. That is dangerous. But they've lost the public opinion battle completely, and they can't stop mobilization against them.
I did want to ask you as well about your campaign, Game Over. How far has it got? Tell us a little bit more about it, because you've got some big names behind it as well.
Right. So the interesting thing, going from that subject to this, is this how delicate suppression is, right? So we launched the campaign with this huge billboard in Times Square, right, which is probably the heart of Zionism in the world, right? So we launched a billboard that said, Israel is committing a genocide. Football federations, do your job and boycott them. Benjamin Netanyahu's office had that pulled down. That shows you that connection to their PR, that the PR is so important to them in America. Where we are with this campaign, within days of that billboard and a European-wide campaign, both with PR and, yes, big names like Richard Falk in the human rights world, John Dugard, former ICJ judge, Gary Lineker, artists like Bobby Ballin. We had a massive collective of people you wouldn't bring normally together on this, demanding Football Federations act. We drove UEFA to nearly a vote to suspend them. Now, they used the peace talks that Donald Trump announced to actually to stop the progress of that. But as you can see, a lot of that's unraveling, right? And also our reminder to them last week, we published a letter from 30 former ICJ judges, ICC prosecutors, and human rights commissioners at the UN. Genocide and a ceasefire don't go hand in hand. Here's the key thing we reminded them of. Just because the bullets and bombs stopped at World War II, you still prosecuted Nazis for the Holocaust. And if the bullets and bombs do stop, and I think that's very unlikely given Benjamin Netanyahu's commitment to continuing the extermination of Palestinians to his own cabinet, if they even stop, though, they still should be held accountable for this genocide. And that means, like the Nazis who didn't play football, like the Germans didn't get to play football for 8 years after World War II, they should not be allowed to step foot on our pitches in Europe, anywhere else in the world. And we believe UEFA will take a vote in the next couple of weeks. Because here's the other thing. Here's what the campaign did. Nearly every federation that sits on the UEFA Executive Committee wrote to UEFA demanding they kick Israel out. That has never happened before. That is real power. Turkey, Ireland, Italy, Norway, no one wants to play them. No one wants to play them. And the club game, here's the real key thing also. Maccabi Tel Aviv are in club football. They have to tour Europe. How are those games going to go ahead? We are already seeing scenes in Italy that people want to tear the city down. And the idea of an Israeli football team turning up in any of these countries right now is going to be uncontrollable for domestic politicians, security forces, everything else that goes hand in hand with that.
Ashish, 2 years, as we've been discussing here on TRT World, of these horrific conditions in Gaza, without a break, ceasefires, but then Israel has continued with the bombardment. What does it say about international law? What does it say about humanity, in your opinion?
I mean, humanity is strong, but international law is dead. Like, our governments have basically shredded it up. Everything that was written in the post-war era is gone. Like, I don't believe we're going to be looking to Western governments for our moral guidelines anymore. We're not going to be looking to our politicians to enforce law at the point. If we are truly enforcing international law, the day the UN declared it a genocide, only a couple of weeks ago, even though we didn't need the UN to prove it was a genocide, the Lemkin Institute declared it one back in December 2023. The UN declared our government should have been cutting Israel off, sanctioning Israel, should have been acting on that, should be arresting people who have participated. And then instead they're welcoming them. They've arrived in the UK since then. They've been in the US. They've flown over European airspace. No one's touched them. International law is dead. It's up to civil society to hold Israel accountable. And people go to me, well, what can civil society do? We've done this stuff before. We've held our own politicians accountable. Why can't we hold another entity that, by the way, if civil society in every country in Europe decided it was going to take action, Israelis won't be able to travel here. Israelis shouldn't be able to travel here anyway. And people will say, well, what about the law? Here's the other thing. We've signed every treaty under the sun that should help us enforce the Genocide Convention, help us enforce the Rome Statute. We are culpable right now because we're not doing any of that. In fact, I would argue the police in every country that is stopping people from preventing this genocide, the public who've tried to block ports that have shipped weapons, the public that have sabotaged planes to stop weapons going there, they are actually heroes. They're enforcing international law, whatever's left of it. In fact, the police, the Metropolitan Police, take that in the UK, are currently complicit. The commissioner himself, every time he orders an arrest of someone trying to prevent weapons getting to Israel, he is complicit. And actually what we need to do is civil society needs to turn on our governments and demand they step down if they are not going to enforce international law.
Ashish, very briefly, what are your hopes for this ceasefire plan that's being negotiated as we speak? I
mean, look, I think Hamas has been consistent. They've been consistent since, I think, the 10th of October 2023. They would hand all the hostages over in exchange for their for hostages that Israel holds in their tens of thousands. I expect maybe the hostage part of this deal to go through because Trump wants it so badly and wants it for his own vindication, his own award, whatever he's looking for to get out of this. Do I expect it to hold? No. I mean, sadly, for the people of Gaza and people of Palestine, the Israelis are deeply committed to this extermination of their civilization, and what it requires is a full military intervention. What it requires is the rest of the world pulling its socks up and actually getting over there. What it requires is 1,000 boats landing there on its shores to get aid to people in Gaza. What it requires is the rest of the world to actually act. That's what it requires.
Ashish, thank you very much for coming in and for giving us your thoughts this evening. Thank you.